Hello and welcome to this tutorial on the FMC on X-Plane with the 737-800 Zibo upgrade, and I can really recommend the Zibo upgrade. It is really very good. Another couple of things you could look at when you're planning a flight is simbrief.com. That's simbrief.com, where you can plan your routing, and that is really good as well. And then there's Sky Vector, which gives you the airways and a lot of other data. Both of those are free, and there is quite a lot of free stuff around, which is well worth having a look at. Anyway, today we are going to set up a flight from Manchester in the United Kingdom to Bristol in the United Kingdom, and Manchester is Echo Golf Charlie Charlie and Bristol is Echo Golf Golf Delta. So this is what we're going to do. So first of all, we look at the FMC, and unless you pay for an add-on, the X-Plane version of the FMC as upgraded by Zibo will always have that on it when you start up. So the first thing to do is to clear that, and then we're ready to go. So we click on FMC and it comes up with a bit of data. You don't really need to bother about that unless you buy an add-on. Then we go to position initialization page, and as I said, we are going to fly from Manchester, so that's Echo Golf Charlie Charlie, which you put in there, and that gives you its that long. And then we're at gate 141, and then that's all you need to do on that page. So you then go to route, and it's kept Manchester there, so we put it in here, not using company route, and the runway we'll deal with later. And our destination is Bristol, which is Echo Golf Golf Delta, and I always fly as KLM 446, which goes in there. That's not necessary. Then you come to this page, and when I started trying to do this, I didn't bother about some of these things because I didn't really need them. But then I found that particularly the vertical navigation system, VNAV, in the autopilot refused to work. And so I found that you have to fill in just about everything that this FMC requires, otherwise your VNAV and possibly your LNAV just will not work. So the first thing you do is you go to this line, and you don't have to put anything in, it does it itself. This line you don't need to do anything with at all. Reserves you do need to put something in, so I just put 2. And the cost index you need to put something in, doesn't matter what you put in, but I put 4.5. Obviously on the real thing, the pilots will have had instruction from their company as to what to put in for these various things. We're going to fly at 20,000 feet today, so you put that in, and you have to do this with the mouse. If you try and do this on the keyboard, it will do all sorts of things to do with your views in X-Plane. So you must do it with a mouse on this keyboard and not on your own computer keyboard. So 20,000, and we put it in there. You also need to put in a cruising heading and for the wind and the speed for the wind. So it doesn't matter what it is, but we'll just put 210 oblique 20. So that's our direction and speed of the wind at 20,000 feet. It won't be that, of course. Then you need to put a temperature in as well, so we just put 5, and that immediately fills in 2 lines. The other thing, in the UK, your transit altitude is 6,000 feet. In USA it's 18,000 feet. So that's that page done. But without that stuff, your VNAV will not work. So we now go on to the next initialization page, and again we have to put something in here, but this one's automatic, so you just click on it and don't do anything else, and it then takes you through to the takeoff page. And again here you must put flaps in for some reason. If you don't, then the VNAV will not work. So you put 5 degrees in and click on the center of gravity, which gives you that. You can look at your trim, which is 4.47, and just have a look to see what that looks like. And yeah, that's already set at about that, so that's fine. Then you'll see these figures here, which are going to convert into your V1 rotate V2, which we will do by clicking on these 3 buttons here. Right. So that's your takeoff speed of 137. So what we can do now is to go to our control panel, and our takeoff speed was 137, so we set that. Oops. We're also going to take off on runway 23 right, so we set that to 230 and that to 230 as well. We are going to fly at 20,000 feet, so I've already set this to 20,000 feet. I've set our runway heading as well to 230. So at this stage we can switch on our flight directors on both sides, but do not switch your auto throttle on. The throttle will do some very strange things if you do that before you've even taken off. So leave that until you're on the runway ready to take off. So that's all we need to do on that panel at the moment. The other thing I do like to do, I like to have the plan on pilot side, and I leave the map on the co-pilot side. So I'll come back now to the FMC. So we go to departure, and we are going to depart on 23 right. Now when I set this up using a plan from SimBrief, I liked the plan for Monty, but when I tried to file that on VATSIM, which I also belong to, the live air traffic controller that day didn't like that, so he said, no, you can't use that, you've got to use CookSim. So I had to change it to that, so we'll use that today. Trans is none, so that's fine, just forget about that. Now the route, I'm going to forget about that at the moment because I prefer to look at the system through the legs. And what we're doing with the legs is to go on route P17. Now the airway routes, although they come up on SimBrief, you cannot actually input them into this FMC system. at least I haven't found a way to do that. So you just have to do it on the waypoints. So we'll go now to our arrival, which is Bristol, and we click on that, and we are going to come in on ILS 27, and it gives you a choice of stars for that, and that should be 1A. These are all for different directions. For example, Baxen is from the south. So we'll have a look at BR1A, see what comes up. Leave that on. And then we can look at the legs. And this is what we're actually hoping to achieve. So having put the departure and arrival in, it's already set us up with several waypoints, which we'll have to come back to in a minute. So go on to the next page. And the first thing you realise is that it's practically put the full route in, just doing that, except that there's a discontinuity between Cuxham and Retzi. There isn't, you don't actually need to put anything in there, so what you have to do is get rid of this one by moving this one up. So what we do with that is you click to the left of Retzi to put it down there, and then you put it in there, and abracadabra, there we are. Now, I don't actually like some of these waypoints. To me, I like a nice, slow, easy approach, and this particular approach routing doesn't give me what I want. So I'm actually going to delete some of them, starting with BRI, because I don't want to go to BRI because I don't know quite why it is, but if you look at it on the routing, it's taking you in towards the runway, then back out again, and then back in again, which is really weird. So what I'm going to do is to delete BRI. I'm then going to delete Inga, and I'm going back to the previous page. I'm going to delete Dobem, and I'm going to delete Riles. And what I'm going to do is to put in a new one, which will give me a nice easy approach. Numpo. And I'm also going to put in MPAS, which I hope won't muck up the system. Right, that's fine, it's just moved it down, so that's fine. So what I can do now is these two are on the glide path for Bristol runway 27, so MPAS is a nice wide approach, so I can move Charlie 127 up, and then I've got a complete list of waypoints. So what I'm then going to do is to activate it, and then what we'll do is to look at it on the map just to check that there's nothing peculiar, and you'll see that that has now appeared after I activated it. So we can go up to there, and the first thing we need to do is to zoom in. Whoops. I need to move that up there, I think. I haven't set up a view for this, so I really ought to do that. Anyway, so on our map, this is showing us at Manchester, and it's showing part of the routing already. So on the step, we're starting at this point here. So if we click on step, it moves us to that point where it puts that star in the middle. So we'll carry on stepping through and make sure nothing peculiar happens. And now we're at FMC, so the next one should be RMVideoChannel, which it is. That's fine. Then AMRAL, NUMPO, then MPAS. Now MPAS is on the wrong side. So MPAS was the wrong one to put in. So what we'll do is we'll go down here and take it out. In fact, I think we will put something else in. So if I refer to my Bristol paperwork, and incidentally all the approach diagrams, departure diagrams, runway diagrams and aircraft parking diagrams can all be obtained from Eurocontrol. If you look that up, it starts I think www.ead.eurocontrol, and you can download all of the information you need for free, which is really, really good. So runway 27 at Bristol, we need to come in from LROV. So that was what was wrong with that. So we will go back to there and we will put LROV in. To there. It might, oh no, it hasn't given us a discontinuity, so that's fine. So what we'll do now is go back up here and we'll start again. Let me just whiz through that. Right, back at Manchester. There's FMC, RMVideoChannel, AMRAL, NUMPO and LROV, which gives us a nice run-in on C127, F127 onto runway 27. So that's fine. So I'm happy with that. So I can now execute that. And it comes up with that. I don't know what that is. Anyway, so that is that finished. So we're now, because I've executed it, it's set me at where I'm going to start from at Manchester on the runway. So the FMC and the autopilot are all ready to go. So what we now need to do is to check that the autopilot is happy with what we've done. And the way you do that is you make sure your flight directors are on both sides, and you then click on VNAV, and it doesn't like it. Click on LNAV, and it does like it. So we need to go back to this FMC and just it's because we changed it, I have to re-execute it. So let's see if that works. There we go. Right, so VNAV is now on. So that's fine. It looks as if quite a few people had difficulty working out how to get VNAV to work, but it is just a question of filling in absolutely everything on the FMC, even if you don't really need it for what you're doing. It's a bit fussy. Now the weird thing about VNAV, and even about LNAV in some cases, is that they don't always do what the autopilot and the FMC have told them to do. And apparently, talking to some pilots on a Flybe flight from Edinburgh to Bristol recently, that actually happens in real life as well. So you can't just take off, set this to go and sit back and wait for it to all happen. You have to monitor it on here and here, because sometimes the aircraft will not turn when it should, and sometimes it will not descend or ascend when it should. So you have to watch it. Anyway, we're going to give it a go and see what happens. So I think we're all ready to go on this. So what I need to do now is tell everyone we're ready to go. So I'll give them the welcome, pre-recorded welcome message that I did earlier, and then I will call for pushback. And I'll just show you where we are. We are on stand 141, and as you can see, there is stuff behind us. The other thing on X-Plane, it is a bit strange sometimes, even though I'm going to order a left pushback, it probably won't give it to me. I think it does it on X-Plane itself, but on the Zibo upgrade it doesn't necessarily do it. But I don't know whether that's the Zibo's fault or X-Plane. Anyway, at the moment we're just waiting for the pushback cart. Don't know where he is. Oh, here he comes. Right. Now again, on the Zibo version of the 737, if I've got my feet on the brakes at the moment, but if I take them off before the truck got there, the aircraft will creep forward. So once you've clicked on your rudder pedals to take the brakes off, you have to keep your feet on until the truck arrives. This is now pushing us back, but it isn't going to push us back far enough. So we want to go further until we've got a line, a taxiway line, which we now have, so I can tell it to stop before it crashes me into the aircraft behind. So that's okay. Make sure he gets out of the way, and then we can start our turn. See, it's creeping already and I've got no power on. So we will put a bit of power on and go starboard. I am not using the X-plane air traffic control on this tutorial, and I am not using the VATSIM either. So while we are taxiing along here, we'll put 5 degrees of flaps on. So we're just coming up to the holding point. And you can see the flaps are green, so that's all right. Should have gone on this one. Okay, so we'll stop here and just do our final checks. If you are flying on the VATSIM system, you would at this point switch that to C, which is just there. That gives the air traffic controllers your height. We then will just do a final check of this, which is fine. Those are both on. This isn't on yet because we're not on the runway. So we'll now go to the runway. Of course, usually check port and starboard just in case anything is coming into land. Okay. Right, so we're now ready to go. So we need to put our auto throttle on, and we will put N1 on, and that puts our engines onto more or less full. Manually I will put the throttles on full, wait for them to settle down. Now at this stage the autopilot is not going to do anything. Except control our engines on takeoff. So I'll put the yoke forward slightly to keep the nose wheel on the ground, feet off the brakes.
$80 knots. V1 rotate. Positive rate.
Undercarriage up. Hold it at about that level of climb.
400.
And then we'll switch on command 1 and we can let go of the throttle. And the yoke.
1000.
And it's flying us very well. Now we have to start watching that it does what it's supposed to be doing. So I'm going to give it a bit more close up. So it did that first turn correctly, which is good. And there's the aircraft ID, and it's just coming up to another turn. So that's all working quite well. Although my throttles are on full, the throttles are being controlled by the auto throttle. So you do not need to touch them. Slowing down a bit. And you'll see that it isn't actually on the waypoint line, but it's picked up the star. And this is what you have to watch, particularly if you've got a sharp turn. Sometimes it'll miss. And you'll see that because we set 20,000 feet on the altimeter, it's got 20,000 there. And so it will go there eventually. But what it's doing at the moment is it's proceeding to this waypoint, and it's got 3 miles to go, at which it is supposed to be 5,000 feet. So you can see that it is at 5,000 feet. So it's behaving itself very well so far. So the LNAV is working and the VNAV is working, which is great. If you're using air traffic control, then they may very well change the procedures and the waypoints that you put in the FMC, or take you off them altogether. So you have to be prepared for that. But for example, once you reach the top of your climb, we will then change this altitude to the airport altitude for Bristol, which I believe is 619 feet. So we'll set that to 650 or 700. Yeah, 650 or 700. Right, we can now raise our flaps. So we're now clean. Turning on to the next waypoint. So that is all looking good. Coming over to the... Oh, I could do it on this one, I suppose. Let's put the plan over on that one. Okay. So you can see that we are quite nicely following the waypoint direction. The height is now increasing to our operational height of 20,000 feet, which it should reach by waypoint Retsea in 41 miles. So on this leg we will be able to see on here there is the position at which we will be at top of climb based on what's happening at the moment. So at that point in 15 miles, just under now, we will have reached 20,000 feet. So when we get there, that is the time to put your Bristol altitude onto your altimeter. If you do not do that, then you will get a warning message on here telling you to reset your MCP. I don't want to let it do that, because if it does that, it tends to muck up the VNAV control, and it then won't it won't descend when it's supposed to. So I don't want to let that happen. So I'm going to be watching this. You can see on there that the autopilot recognizes that it's going to Retsea, and it's giving the distance to it, it's giving our cruising altitude, height, and it's giving the speed, which are in the autopilot. These are the autopilot settings. Then you've got your VNAV and LNAV up there. So we're almost at top of
1,000 to go.
As he says, the automated system, 1,000 to go. And we are just about there. And the throttles are coming back as we get close. So that is that purple box there. Sorry, I should have explained that. That the purple lines are saying that we're where we should be. So we're now going to go up here and set this to 619, which it hasn't got, so we have to do 700. And we want to do it for more anyway, because what we don't want to do is to arrive and have the autopilot crash us into the ground because we've set it too low. So everything appears to be working fine. We're now going to also set this for our landing heading. Sorry. Never mind. Let's do it the other way. And our heading on here, just in case the autopilot pops out, we're heading at 180, so I'm going to bring that round to 180. There, 190. So you see the dotted line move when I did that. The dotted line is what this is set at, whereas the solid line is what the autopilot says we ought to be doing, and this arrow is us, which is showing what we're actually doing. So that is the position here at cruising altitude. So we'll just tell the passengers we're levelling off, and we would also at this stage switch off the seatbelt signs. So that explains how the FMC is set up so that the VNAV and LNAV work, with an example of how we have taken off using those systems without any problems. So that is really, really good. So that's the end of part 1 of this tutorial on setting up the FMC so that the VNAV and LNAV autopilot systems are made to work on this X-Plane 11 737-800 Zibo upgrade. And I hope that it will be useful to you in your own flights. If you wish to see the remainder of this flight, then have a look at the part 2 video, which will deal with the flight into Bristol using the VNAV and LNAV and seeing what sort of problems occur with those systems. So for the moment, thank you very much, and bye-bye.